Welcome to the US Daily Brief YouTube channel. While the war in eastern Ukraine continues by increasing the intensity of fire, new developments are taking place in the Black Sea. In order to break the blockade carried out by Russia on the Black Sea coasts of Ukraine, a new one is added to the shipments sent to the region, and the Ukrainian coasts are brought to a much greater level of security. Ukraine is able to hold back Russian warships over 100 kilometers with its own Neptune strike anti-ship missiles. With the American-made Harpoon anti-ship missiles sent to Ukraine by Denmark in the past weeks, Russian warships are now being pushed back up to 150 kilometers. However, at the moment, 6 Russian warships and 2 submarines in the Black Sea are constantly firing cruise missiles at Ukraine. In addition, 5 large landing craft from the Russian Navy are off the coast of Ukraine. This pressure and intensity of the Russian Navy in the Black Sea pushes Ukraine and Europe to take more precautions. A meaningful move would be to push Russian warships much further away, which would require longer-range anti-ship missiles. At this point, Scandinavian technology, especially mastered in navy and naval warfare, comes into play. Especially the statement made by Sweden, which is very advanced in submarine and anti-ship missile technologies, gives hope to the whole world to prevent the approaching food crisis and to expel Russian warships from the Ukrainian shores. In the statements made, it was said that Ukraine could receive anti-ship missiles from Sweden with a range twice as long as the Harpoon. The Swedish government has decided to send the Ukrainian armed forces the 4th military aid package needed to fight the Russian army. This package includes 12mm machine guns, anti-tank missiles and undisclosed anti-ship missiles of critical importance to the Black Sea coast. This Swedish aid package aims to provide the Ukrainian armed forces with a much superior security measure both on land and at sea. The anti-tank weapons included in the package include Carl Gustaf and NLAWs, which have been used for a long time in the region and have proven their effectiveness against Russian tanks. However, the fact that the type of anti-ship missiles, which is the most important shipment, is not disclosed, provides us with a field of opinion. The anti-ship missiles that Sweden will send to Ukraine can be 2 types of coastal anti-ship missile complexes. One of them is RBS-17 and the other is RBS-15. The RBS-17 Hellfire is a short-range anti-ship missile that fires a GM-114 Hellfire missiles. These weapons, with a total range of 9 kilometers, will have a very serious effect on destroying the Raptor-class landing craft of the Russian Navy that dares to approach the region. However, sending RBS-17 Hellfire missiles to Ukraine seems unlikely. The main reason for this is that Sweden has only 8 launchers in total from these anti-ship missiles. The second type of anti-ship missile is the RBS-15, and these anti-ship missiles can help break the blockade that the Russian army has established in the region. Sweden made an upgrade to RBS-15 in 2016 and upgraded it. The final version of this weapon, the RCD-15 Mk4, stood out as a weapon with a total range of 300 kilometers. A range of 300 kilometers is a very serious amount for an anti-ship missile and could completely clear the Russian Navy from the Ukrainian coast. In a statement regarding the shipment, Swedish Finance Minister Mikael Damberg and Defense Minister Peter Hultqvist said, "In solidarity with Ukraine and as part of the international response to Russia's actions, the government sees a continuing need to support Ukraine." According to Swedish Foreign Minister Ann Linde, anti-ship missiles will be part of a larger military aid package, which includes anti-tank guns, 12.7mm rifles and ammunition, and these anti-ship missiles will provide a major boost to the Ukrainian armed forces in protecting the coastline. Sweden's last tranche of aid to Ukraine came just after the $700 million security aid package announced by the U.S. Department of Defense. The package featured an undisclosed number of long-range anti-ship missiles that would allow Ukrainian forces to hit Russian targets from greater distances. The White House said in May that Russia is working on a plan to supply Ukraine with advanced anti-ship missiles to repel the country's strategically vital naval blockade of the Black Sea coast. U.S. officials said Boeing's Harpoon missile and Kongsberg and Raytheon's naval strike missile are being actively evaluated. The missiles would either be sent directly to Ukraine by the United States or transferred by a European ally. In fact, Ukraine's Western allies delivered some of these weapons to the Ukrainian armed forces. Denmark has sent Harpoon anti-ship missiles to Ukraine, and the Ukrainian Navy is currently actively using Harpoon anti-ship missiles. At the same time, the Neptune strike missiles produced by Ukraine, which hit Russia's Black Sea Fleet flagship in the region, are one of the elements that strengthen the Ukrainian coastal defense in the region. However, Neptune strikes entered service in 2021 and it is not known how many of these missiles are in the hands of the Ukrainian armed forces. Kyiv repeatedly appealed to the West for anti-ship missiles, but the delivery of these weapons to Ukraine was hampered by significant training and maintenance requirements.
Ukraine does not have a viable navy and therefore lacks the ability to deploy such missiles from ships and does not have a large number of compatible land-based launchers.
Ukraine in general deals with such problems a lot. Because they have almost no personnel competent to use Western weapons, and the weapons to be shipped must have been trained beforehand. If we leave the Swedish RBS-15 aside and go back to the RBS-17, these coastal defense missiles can be used in very effective missions in the region and cause serious damage to the Russian army. The RBS-17 is a weapon also referred to as the Robot 17. Talking about the features of the weapon, the Robot 17 system is a Swedish anti-ship, coastal defense derivative of the US-made AGM-114 Hellfire missile and was first produced by Bofors Defense in the 1980s.
While the Hellfire missile system is designed to neutralize armored vehicles at long distances, usually in an attack helicopter such as the AH-64 Apache, the portable Robot 17 can be launched from a shoreline firing point as well as naval vessels. The missile itself is laser-guided and has a range of about 5 miles, but that is probably slightly less under normal operating conditions. The human portable Robot 17 is ideal for guarding against amphibious invasions and is extremely long-lasting as the units can easily set up and position the system for firing. The system also has a secondary ability to attack ground targets, which can come in handy. The delivery of these systems to the region actually means the end of an era. Because Sweden will have completely broken the principle of neutrality that it has maintained for many years with these shipments and will show that it is on the side of Ukraine in the Ukraine-Russia war. Looking at the Black Sea, it is one of the most critical corners of the Ukrainian war. Since the first day of the war, Russia consolidated its dominance in the Black Sea and could not perform a successful mission only on the coast of Odessa. Russia's first blow in the Black Sea was when the cruiser Moskva, which we mentioned earlier, was hit and sunk by the Neptune strike missile. The main task of Moskva was to protect the Snake Island, and the Russian Navy carried out continuous shipments to the Snake Island due to the pressure it established in the Black Sea. We remember how Russia moved multiple air defense assets to Snake Island, where naval activities helped to blockade the Ukrainian coast due to the stranding of food supplies. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has requested more anti-ship missiles to break the blockade and warned this week that 75 million tons of grain could be trapped in Ukraine by autumn. Even though this call had mobilized all the states of the world, everyone had the same question mark in their minds. Would such long-range anti-ship missiles really give Ukraine an advantage? Because Russia's only threat in the Black Sea is not its ships. The threat posed by the Russians is their submarines that can mine the waters, torpedo ships and thus have strong underwater power and submarine capability. Ukraine, which does not have a navy, does not have an answer to Russian submarines. The blockade that Russia has established on the Black Sea port of Odessa is actually to completely deprive Ukraine of use of its Black Sea ports and inflict harm by preventing Ukraine from selling its grain in the ongoing war, inflicting an economic blow on them. This has been tolerated by the states of the world so far, but Russia's continuation of the Black Sea blockade and not allowing the shipping corridor will cause the USA and European states to take much more drastic measures. Russia can no longer act threateningly against heavy weapons sent to Ukraine. And it looks like he has no reputation left to act threateningly. The U.S. government also announced that additional Harpoon anti-ship missiles were included in the latest $1 billion in Ukrainian military aid. In this case, it would not be surprising to see Swedish advanced anti-ship missiles in Ukraine. At the moment, the Black Sea may be the decisive key element in the war in Ukraine. At the start of the war, Russia's initial focus seemed to be securing the Sea of Azov and the ports of Berdyansk and Mariupol.
The Russian Navy subsequently moved quickly to impose a blockade on the Ukrainian coast, closing the Kerch Strait, connecting the smaller Sea of Azov with the Black Sea.
Berdyansk and Mariupol have since fallen into the hands of Russian forces.
However, Odessa was besieged and the port was attacked in the first days of the occupation. Russia continues to patrol the southern coast with about 20 warships lined up off the coast of Ukraine.
A serious naval blockade was applied to the western coast of Ukraine, especially in order to completely close the Odessa and Snake Island surroundings, and the Ukrainian merchant ships were completely immobilized.
When we look at the landscape ahead of us, as we said earlier, the Russian Navy is still very superior in the Black Sea and international pressure is clearly needed to lift the blockade of Ukraine. But Putin will not consider lifting this blockade for now. Because in the coming days, when the Russian army loses, when the agreement is settled, the Russian Navy power in the Black Sea will be used by Putin.